Welcome back to the channel, everyone. It's another episode of Late Night with the Gringo. This is episode 55, and yes, I'm a little keyed up. I'm a little burnt out right now because I just blew through about 300 to 350 pages of the newly released JFK assassination files. About 80,000. Basically, the rest of them were just released. They are. I'll show you the website where you can view them yourselves. I've got a bunch of notes to look at. There's a couple surprises, and there's a lot of what the hell am I looking at? And so we're going to talk about all of this. Now I know my son is with me again. So how you doing, buddy?
Doing good, doing good.
So I know
busy day.
It's been a really busy day for us, but good day. But as soon as those hit, I dropped everything and started just to try and read through them. Nothing is redacted. That is a great thing. That doesn't mean that you can read everything. We're going to get to it. This is something I've been waiting to go through. Can I promise you that I'm going to go through all 80,000? Well, no, I can't, but I'll try. But I got through about 300 to 350. That's my best estimate right now. And but with that, unless you got anything to add, let's just get right to it.
No, let's get into it. It's been a busy day actually for news if we think about it.
It really has been. We got a couple other things that are going on, but let's it should be on my Google. There we go. Here we go. So, basically what you want to do if you want to get to these files, you want to go to the National Archives. Now, let's see, make sure I know where I'm at. 12. Let me just write down 12 so I don't forget that. So, you want to go to the National Archives official website, which is basically archives.gov. And right here they are, the President John F. Kennedy Assassination Records Collection. You click on that. You're going to come down. You're going to go here. This is the 2025 release. This is what everybody's looking for. And here they all begin. It begins right here. It just goes down. I've got it sequenced. And it goes to about 113. So not every a lot of files are just one page, and I'll show what they are, and it's just a waste of time. You look at them for about a second, and you just move on. All right. So let's give you an idea of how this works. So click on the PDF here. Boom. Here's unclassified, just declassified a couple hours ago. This is basically just a cover sheet. That's all it is. It just basically, there's nothing here. Why it's there, I don't know. Why this is a classified item, I don't know. Maybe because it's got someone's name, this person, the clipping of article. Someone clipped an article that was in the newspaper that was about the Kennedy murder, so they put it in the file. That file's why that's classified, I don't know. No one knows. But this is like what you get. So you get that one page. You say, okay, well, I've seen that now. Great, and you can go on to something different. And some of them are very readable. This is an interesting one, actually. You start seeing CIA, USSR, Soviet Union consulate. You start seeing Oswald, right? Whenever you see a document here in this file, now I've done about 300. I said about 300 of these, 350 pages worth. Only in about 3 pages have I seen the name Oswald. Okay, so if you're getting in here and you're thinking you're going to see all this information about what happened in Dealey Plaza, what they knew about Oswald, listen, you got to dig. First off, one, you're going to have to dig because you don't hear a lot. This is just about how he stayed in Helsinki for a little bit before coming back to the United States and doing what he allegedly did. Right, so you got stuff like that. Let's see here. There's some stuff that's just unlegible. You get stuff like this. It basically it's the notes of whoever's watching Oswald. All right, they have a contact, and basically just goes through. It takes 25 minutes to drive from the airport to downtown Helsinki. I mean, it's the CIA. They write down everything. By taxi, it should take no more than 5 minutes to reach the Soviet consulate. The Soviet consulate probably closes at 3. I mean, so you go on, it's like, okay, what does this have to do with that? And you read through it, and okay, that's all that is. But for some reason, this is classified, right? Why is classified? Don't know.
Probably has to do because they talk about Oswald and
his
prior life to the assassination attempt.
But we all knew he was in Finland in 59.
Sure. But maybe we didn't exactly know the extent the CIA was watching him.
Well, he was on the radar, and that is my only thing is I think you're absolutely right. It's like, okay, it says, okay, we knew who this guy was. Right. All right. And I'll be honest with you, the more and more I read about this, the more and more I think to myself, he might have, the whole grand government conspiracy theory starts to fall apart a little bit. Do I think he had help? Yeah. Do I think there was a second shooter? Absolutely. But and there's an interesting article from the KGB about Oswald in here that we'll get to. So a bunch of stuff that I learned, and I'm going to go through this, and as you guys watch here, since we're not looking at these documents right now, let me see what I got here. Here we go. Let's see this. Let's go back to our split screen. Okay, so we came across some of that stuff, right? The Helsinki stuff. It's interesting. We all know that that's where he was. All right. I'm pulling up some more documents here. This is it. Yeah, this will be the next one I talk about. This is really, those ones get really interesting.
What are those?
They mentioned James Earl Ray, which surprised the hell out of me, but we'll get to that in a second.
All right.
And if you don't know who James Earl Ray is, don't worry, I'll tell you. All right. The Australian government, there's letters in there from the Australian Intelligence Agency, basically about a document that I have not yet found among the 80,000 called CD971. Now, it could be having a different number, and that's why I can't find it. It's been reclassified. But for some odd reason, there are so many. First of all, it's the Australian government, which I never expected to have involved in the JFK assassination in any which way or form, but apparently they are. So the Australian government is urging, begging, pleading, demanding, giving every excuse in the book not to release document CD971. So I've got it written down. I will find it eventually and figure out what the hell's so important about CD971. But that's also the Australian government's mentioned. So that was interesting. Then a name kept popping up. Roman Fedorovich Dedkov. Okay. This is a KGB agent. And apparently he might have known Oswald. It becomes very clear what I'm looking at is the KGB, not just the CIA, but the KGB was well aware of who Lee Harvey Oswald was. But let me just preface it with this. They did not like Lee Harvey Oswald at all. Everything I've read, he was not someone they wanted to recruit. He's not someone they wanted to talk to. He was someone they had to tolerate. They had to tolerate him because he was an American that defected, so it was good press for the Soviet Union on a PR level. But intelligence-wise, they did not like this man. They did not want anything to do with this man. They didn't want to support him. They didn't want to give him money. And it goes on. So Roman Fedorovich Dedkov talks about him. He's a KGB agent that's mentioned a couple times and talks about just not wanting anything to do with him. Then we get to, and I'm gonna mispronounce these words. So anybody in Russia or anybody who's Soviet or Russian, I apologize. All right. Yes. This is a guy. Valery Vladimirovich Kostikov. All right. This is a bad dude, all right? We're going to call him Kostikov for right now, or Kostikov. He was the man in charge of visas. He was a consular officer who's in charge of visas, issuing visas and passports at the Soviet embassy in Mexico City. Now, give you some background. Mexico City in the late 50s, early 60s, and in the mid 60s, late 60s was Candyland for intelligence, Candyland for spies. I mean, if there was something going on in the world and it involved spies or spycraft or whatnot, it somehow was coming through Mexico City at some point in time because it was the wild, wild west down here. Now, we all know that Lee Harvey Oswald went to the embassy, the Soviet embassy and the Cuban embassy in Mexico City to try and get a passport to go back to the Soviet Union, all right, after he defected, right? He left the United States, renounced his citizenship, became a Soviet citizen, decided after a couple of years, didn't want to do that, came back with his Russian wife. Don't know yet how he did that because it's really impossible to get Russian citizens out of the Soviet Union at the time, but came back to the United States, and while living in the United States, traveled back and forth to Mexico to try to get visas either to travel to Cuba to travel to the Soviet Union or traveling from Mexico to the Soviet Union to go back. He was very disillusioned, all right? And so this guy, Kostikov, was the guy in charge. He knew Oswald very much. It's obvious from the diplomatic cables, the intercepted CIA cables that the CIA intercepted from the KGB, that Kostikov knew Oswald and would not give him any passport or anything. Now, Kostikov is known as, in other reports, the CIA will tell you, they have all this whole guy's profile, this guy Kostikov. He's a bad dude. They call him unmannered. They call him violent. They call him dangerous. They call him probably, one letter says he's probably the most dangerous an unpredictable member of any intelligence organization in the world at the time. So this is
he's just stamping visas.
Not just that. No, he would go into Mexico City. Right now, he would leave the embassy. He would go somewhere to a bar and just start fighting people.
Oh, wow.
Just Mexican citizens. I mean, he got arrested. It made news, but still, he was so well liked. He was so well liked that they put him in charge of the embassy in Beirut, in Lebanon. After that, in the 70s, and of course, the KGB was notorious and led by this guy Kostakov for doing all sorts of bad shit to the American embassies, real strong arm tactics. So this dude was a bad dude, but well up there. He knew Oswald and wanted nothing to do. So if this guy wanted nothing to do with Oswald, it makes me think that the KGB knew that this guy was a loose cannon, that Oswald was a loose cannon, and they just didn't want anything to do with him. So this letter right here is very interesting. So this letter right here, this is from the late 60s. Okay. All right. This is from an informant that knew Lee Harvey Oswald. All right, I'm going to read this. I'm going to bring it up here.
While you read that, I'm going to go grab some tissues real quick.
Go grab some tissues real quick. The allergies are killing us. All right, let me just do this, everybody. Give me a second. I know I've just been reading. I've just been pounding through stuff here. Okay. All right, this is to the Russian ambassador. All right. At the embassy of the Soviet Union that was in Washington. This is typed. This is a retyping of a handwritten letter that I'm not bringing up. I've tried to go through the handwritten letter. It's messy as hell. Dear sir, Mr. Wasilov Consul gave me order to transmit this information to U.S. government on August 9th, 1963 in Sofia, Bulgaria. So this is an informant. This is a Russian or Eastern European intelligence informant that is talking to the Soviet Union. Mr. Wasilov, Consul of Embassy of USSR. So Mr. Wasilov is the embassy consul. He's basically the head of the consulate for the Soviet Union at the time. Gave me this information about Mr. Lee Harvey Oswald on August 14th, 1963, almost 3 months before the assassination. Mrs. Basera Asenanov, girlfriend of Russian consul, came to my room and repeated that Mr. Lee Harvey Oswald is assassin. He will kill President Kennedy. All right. The Russians knew the Russians had information from an intelligence source that Lee Harvey Oswald was planning to kill the president. That's according to this one letter. Okay. On August 15th, 1963, in Sofia, Bulgaria, at the airport in an embassy car, I told to Mr. Blackshire, the American vice consul. So now this intelligence officer is also claiming that the American vice consulate in Bulgaria gives him a name, Mr. Blackshire, that Mr. Lee Harvey Oswald is an assassin. He has a weapon or has ordered one already. Mr. Blackshire said it seemed like he will kill someone. I said that Mr. Lee H. Oswald is preparing to kill President of the United States, John F. Kennedy. Mr. Blackshire said where it will happen. Mr. Blackshire, an American vice consul, actually turned to this guy and said where it will happen. I said they will invite President Kennedy to criticize him in the newspaper, then kill him. Mr. Blackshire, American vice consul, told me he will give the telegram to the Department of State. He gave me the address to where we're going to report. So at 9 a.m. on August 19, 1963 in Washington, D.C., he went to see Mr. Kippingen. So he's got names. Director of Special Counselor Service Department of State for the United States at Pennsylvania Avenue. I told the director that I have information about President Kennedy. The director said, do not mention name of President Kennedy, only respond to the questions. The director said, tell us what will happen to Mr. Lee Harvey Oswald then. I said, Mr. Lee H. Oswald will be killed after he kills Kennedy. Which happened. I said I will take the truth drug to tell the truth. The guy's offering to take sodium pentothal to prove that he's telling the truth in 1963, 3 months before the assassination. So not only is this letter saying that allegedly, now this has been classified all this time. So if this isn't true, why would it be classified? Why would it be in there? Why would it just, right? That not only did the Soviet government know at the time that there was an assassin preparing to kill the president, but members of the United States government did not take it seriously, including people who were consulate employees and State Department employees. The director, tell us who else. Now, this guy's got broken English because he's speaking from an Eastern European. English is his second language. Director, tell us who else gets killed in this country. I said, as I heard, Dr. Martin Luther King will be killed. This guy is also naming, way before Dr. King gets assassinated, that Dr. King will. So this guy's already named. Who will kill Dr. King Jr.? I'm not going to say that N-word. Leader. I said a man who is in prison at this time. Mr. James Earl Ray was in prison at that time. Director asked where assassination would happen. I said in Dallas, Texas. Director said if someone gave this information here, I would expel the man. Director did call on FBI agents after FBI uses anesthesia gas to freeze me or drug me to keep me. So there's all sorts of weird crap going on with this dude. But this letter was the one letter that really blew my mind, that it's possible, yes, that the American government knew that this was already going to happen, and some members of the government didn't take it either seriously, wanted it to happen, didn't care that it was going to happen. I told Director of State that Mr. Lee Harvey Oswald has a weapon. Go see him. Director told me, 2, you can have a weapon. So what if Oswald got a weapon? So basically the department director said, you can get a weapon. So what if Oswald's got a weapon? But he's saying Oswald's going to kill the president, and it happened 3 months later. I think we should have probably listened to this guy. So this is one of these things that are just, this blew my mind, and I can't wait to dig more into it. All right. But after this letter, all of this guy just goes away. I was expecting to see this guy, question, CIA document, nothing. He doesn't come up again. And I'm 350 pages in. I'm thinking, this guy seems credible. Okay. So anyways,
what's this guy's name? Again, give me the full name.
I will have to get it again because I didn't, I cut it off. That's my problem. I cut it off. Hold on.
No worries.
I did cut it off.
So you're telling me you had a guy walk into an office, say, in 3 months, the president's going to be killed by this guy. He just bought this gun. He's going to use this weapon to kill him. And also, the leader of the civil rights movement is also going to be killed by a person who's currently in jail, who was James Earl Ray, right?
Yep.
Who was in jail at the time.
Yep.
And this guy was a Soviet?
I think he's Bulgarian or Bulgarian. I have not been able to establish his nationality. I have not been able to establish his nationality. I don't think you can
try. I can try to.
I think this is the letter.
You said Sofia, right? Bulgaria.
Sofia, Bulgaria. Okay.
Soviet.
This guy received from one Sergey. Oh, I'm going to butcher that name.
Spell that name.
SERGYJ space CZORNONOH.
You looked it up. There's no.
No, you ain't gonna find this guy's name.
The only thing you find him in is in the archives.
Yeah.
California Digital Library. They have something else on him actually. Hold on. It's the only link outside. Also, CIA says secret. Hold on.
Well, here, I mean, not only do they have his letter, here's the envelope he sent it into the British ambassador, one of the ambassadors. Here's his handwritten. This is the actual handwritten letter that he wrote in English, and it goes on, and it talks about being bothered by the FBI, drugged by the FBI, intimidated by the FBI, in ways that I don't want to talk about right now because they're kind of gross. But even contacting the senators. And like he mentions Martin Luther King Jr. I did not expect to find out look at some things. Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassination comes up in the JFK files, and it's really weird in how they look like they're connected. It's really, really weird.
Here's something interesting. List of male DPs from the USSR and Soviet satellites eligible for induction into the armed services. Office of Memorandum, United States government stamped secret CIA document.
Yep. Yeah, he has some. They were trying to recruit him. The CIA was trying to recruit him, right?
Which is interesting.
Now, when again, I don't see him ever again. Now, what I do find out is that
CSR. What's CSR?
Congressional Services.
No. Because you got Yugoslavia abbreviated underneath. So CSR is Czech Soviet Republic.
Could have been Czechoslovakia. But what I do see is that when you read through these 300 pages, a lot of it's just boring or stuff that you just don't care about, right? Stuff you can just blow right by. Like, okay, so you get stuff like this. It's like, okay, then you get the stuff like This is legible compared to some of the stuff. Oh, here's the Australian Security Intelligence. Please do not. Here it is, CD97, like I mentioned at the beginning. It's a letter to you recommend against declassification of the Warren Commission document CD971, which refers to the investigation of anonymous telephone calls to the Canberra embassy before and after the assassination of President Kennedy. So somebody was making anonymous phone calls for some reason to the embassy in Canberra, which is Australia. Who knows what they were saying? Obviously, they know what was being said, but whatever CD971 is a document documenting those conversations before and after them. And the Australian government is saying, please do not release this stuff. Why? Don't know. I can't wait to find document CD971. So the rest of the stuff was really kind of, I don't want to say boring, but, and I'll get into a couple of other things that were really kind of blew my mind. But you get stuff like this, it's basically just reports from CIA operatives, intelligence operatives saying, hey, we no trace on the dark blue Buick belonging to Soviet or black, right? Just whatever they were doing that day, whoever they were watching.
Interesting.
Very little information on Oswald himself. But I'll get to one other thing that was really interesting when they were talking about Oswald and what Kostakov was talking about with Oswald, the badass Russian dude. What you get is a real big picture of just how intense and invasive and detailed the Cold War was on an intelligence and spying level. I mean, it's insane just how everything was looked at. Everybody who left Cuba and came to the United States, they had a file on these people. They had files on who they were, who their families were, what their travel was, what their education was. Cuba is a big friggin' deal. Like, most of the documents mention activities in Cuba or mention Cuba, period. So Cuba, I think whatever ties are, I think that's going to play a role. After somebody reads through all 80,000 of these documents, they're going to say Cuba was a big deal because there was a lot of ill will towards Kennedy when it came to Cuba because he refused with the Bay of Pigs. He refused to give back up to the insurgents there. He refused to go in and kill Castro. He refused to invade Cuba during the Cuban Missile Crisis. He refused to start a war. And there's a lot of people. There was a lot. I got to tell you, there was a lot of Cuban exiles living in Florida, Texas, Louisiana, that just wanted the United States to go to war with Cuba because they hated Castro so much. It was so bad, right? Now, throughout these documents, I had to look this stuff up just in case anybody does want to read through this. You're going to see an acronym, KUBARK, all in capital letters. I had no idea what that was, so I'm reading through going, what the hell is KU? Figure out that's their way of saying CIA. So in CIA documents, the CIA is covering up their own name with their own acronym, with another acronym called KUBARK. Then you're going to see JM Wave, and that is all over the place in these documents that I've read. That is the over 2,000 acre plot of land in Florida used and taken over by the CIA. That was basically their second headquarters. And it was primarily only for activity in Cuba and the rest of Central and South America, which, again, Central and South America will also play a huge role through all the documents that I've read through. You got activities in Argentina. You get activities in Chile. You get activities in Guatemala, in Mexico, in Cuba. I mean, just everywhere. It's insane. You've got you got gun running, gun trafficking, going from New York, the Cubans running they call them Alpha 66. Look these guys up. This is known now. Alpha 66. They were an anti-Fidel Castro, anti-Cuba Cuban group, very militant. They had bases. They had secret bases funded by the CIA in Houston, in Louisiana, in Florida, and they would run guns. And just so they would, not run them through the South and get caught right away, they'd take them up through the ports of New York and run them down the East Coast. And this is Alpha 66. So this is a very militant group. Again, now I'm saying all this stuff. I've yet to mention Oswald except for a couple times, which is what's concerning. All right. So hopefully we get more as I read through. I'll have more in the coming days. Oh, okay. So getting back to Kostakov and Oswald, by the way, Kostakov read through the KGB had 5 volumes of information on Oswald. They knew he was They knew who he was. They knew he was a problem. Again, they did not like him. So they had 5 volumes of stuff. They knew they couldn't use him. He was just unpredictable. In one of the volumes, in a KGB cable, Kostakov remarks that Oswald is considered, because they had him do shooting. They watched him shoot with rifles and stuff in the Soviet Union when he defected. They called him a poor shot. They called him a poor shot.
That's an insult.
So here's a guy that supposedly the most difficult headshot in assassination history. Whether it was it luck, I don't know. I don't know what to do, but he's called a poor shot. All right. There's also what you're going to find is the CIA and the press, and it probably is still to this day. The CIA and the mainstream press, they are hand in hand. And it makes me think everything I read in the New York Times or anything else, and I don't want to pick out the New York Times, right? I don't want to get sued. But it makes me think they've got journalists that are CIA agents, and they're not writing real stories. They're writing what the CIA wants them to. Now, we kind of knew that some of that stuff was going on, but man, it's all over the place in just 300 documents that I've read. Okay? Again, Cuba, South America, they talk about Cubans wanting to sabotage because they don't like Kennedy's policies on Cuba. They talk about the Cubans living in the United States sabotaging crops in the United States and blaming it on Fidel Castro just to get Kennedy. So they were taking there was all sorts of dirty shit going on. Garrison. Jim Garrison is mentioned twice so far. Which, if you don't know who Jim Garrison is, if you've seen the movie JFK, directed by Oliver Stone and starring Kevin Costner, which is one of the most famous conspiracy JFK films, I love it. It's one of my favorite movies. Watch it. It's very entertaining. Jim Garrison was the district attorney in New Orleans, and he started his own investigation a few years after Kennedy was assassinated because there were some ties between Oswald and New Orleans. We wanted to make sure that. And he started getting into the whole web of lies and he's like, this is a conspiracy. And he kind of blew it out. He even said, the vice president was involved, which I don't know. I have no Lyndon Johnson, right? It was all tied to Vietnam. It was all tied to this. So it could have been. I don't know yet. I haven't read through all these. But Jim Garrison in New Orleans is mentioned in these papers, which makes me think that movie Oliver Stone made, you know what? He might be closer to the truth than what most people thought. And he got a lot of crap for all the conspiracies that he was peddling. So the fact that he's mentioned here, and they specifically say, do not try to discredit Jim Garrison. Do not try to put articles out. They don't want him to have any attention. Just let him do it. Yeah. They're like, he's a public official. They elect him. That's what but they were telling people in the CIA how to explain Jim Garrison to their foreign counterparts. How to say, well, he's a state, not a federal. We don't have right. Just try to brush him off, right? Because they didn't know what to do because this guy was getting close to the truth, probably. Okay.
Which I know you want to move on from that.
No. Go ahead. Jump in anytime.
Imagine you watch that movie again, and you think now with the different mindset after reading just 300 of these documents, thinking this guy might have had the correct theory, or at least maybe a good portion.
Maybe partial.
A good portion.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, listen. If you're ever mentioned in a CIA document, and they talk about not trying to discredit you, or kind of talking about your story or your actions that kind of go against their agenda, you're doing something right. That's what I say, and that makes me believe that they saw the idea that if they tried to discredit him, they just would bring more validity to the case. And they also saw that he's a state official, not a federal official. Mm-hmm. So it's easier for a state official to get lost in the news cycle and their actions. But a federal official is a different story. So I think it's very unique that they say, do not try to discredit him, leave him be, and use the whole state official, not federal official excuse when talking to foreigners.
Yeah.
That is very interesting to me because a lot of people don't understand how state officials work in the United States who live abroad or aren't from here. And they kind of just forget about them. They don't think they're as important.
Yeah.
So I think it was a very, very smart thing that the CIA did. Obviously, I don't think it's the right thing. They're trying to cover something. But I mean, if you're just appreciating for the tactician aspect of it, it's pretty smart.
Yeah. I just pulled this up just real quick. I was mentioning JM Wave, and just this is what it looks like. All right, that's their Florida base. That's the CIA's main Florida base. Right, JM Dusk, I believe, is CIA headquarters. Here you got Kubrick, that's CIA, period. Right? Then you got Am Carbon 2, you got Am Carbon. These are the people, these are the names given to people they don't want to be known, okay? And sometimes you can go to the bottom of the document and they'll tell you, well, who this person is and who that person is. And, but there's just Cubans everywhere. I mean, it's just, I didn't know there was that many Cubans employed by the CIA, including people like the Washington News, Edmund Lee of the Washington News Bureau. Am Carbon 1 regards this source as being particularly interesting in view of the fact that Leahy's daughter is the secretary in the office of the Attorney General Robert Kennedy. So the CIA was getting sources. They had sources inside the Attorney General's office. The brother of the president, Robert Kennedy, who himself would later on be assassinated. The CIA was out of control. I mean, you have them, they're not supposed to be spying. They have no domestic mandate. Everything the CIA does is supposed to be outside the United States, right? And they're only supposed to be in foreign. The FBI can be domestic. This is the CIA, so they're cultivating assets inside the Attorney General's office, the Department of Justice, right? Are we surprised why Robert Kennedy would later be shot and killed? Who knows what was going on, right? Here, former president of the Dominican Republic was one of their assets.
Wow.
I mean, it was unreal. So, I mean, they were just breaking rules left and right. The CIA was just out of control.
Just a huge spider web of just lies and.
I mean, it was just amazing.
You talk about it. I mean, can we not brush over the point that they had a former president of a foreign country underneath their influence?
More than that. Then you get some stupid stuff like this. Okay, you're gonna get 19 pages of how their filing system works. It's just like, why is this classified? Like, I actually read through all 19 pages of this. It's basically it's like a manual. Like literally, it's what it is. Like, personality file action request form goes here. Biographic information in section B. Contents of a dossier. Basically how they create a dossier. Kind of interesting.
I think probably because they don't want people to figure out how to properly read the documents.
I guess.
If documents got leaked.
But this is the kind of crap that's in the JFK files, right? This is secret, how they do this stuff, right? There's no information. When you see that stuff, skip right through it. I've already read through some of it, all right? Again, then you get stuff like this. You don't know what you're reading. You have no context to what it is. That's the other problem. That's the big problem. There's no timeline linear here. You get a document, and then the next document you read could have nothing to do with what you just read. It's like everything, 80,000 documents just vomited onto the internet, and you're like, what do I do? All right, so you just start reading them and taking your own notes. This one is attention, Mr. Joseph E. Murphy, Jr., subject, Robert West Pugh. Reference is made to your request dated 4 January 1966, wherein you requested a covert security approval to permit the subject's use of as first officer in the Far East under Project that's Vietnam, in accordance with the provisions set forth in Clandestine Services Instructions number 10-5 and Clandestine Services Instruction Field number 10-5. A covert security approval is granted for the use of the subject. So basically, you get this, and you're like, okay, so this dude has been given security clearance, and obviously Far East, so you're thinking during the time it's got to be Vietnam, but it doesn't tell you what he's doing.
Is it Vietnam? Is it very clear to Vietnam? Because Far East could also be Soviet Eastern Bloc.
I think they would call it. I mean,
usually 19th, Far East. Far East usually is Eastern Asia.
I'm just on
so it could be China.
It could be China. I'm going with Vietnam was the big deal at the time. So
I'm thinking Vietnam, China, because Far East is usually, that's what you refer to that region as, the Far East. East, I think you would call that. That's like the Soviet bloc. So interesting.
But then you get this thing like, okay, they want to give concurrent with your investigation has recently been completed with generally favorable results. However, the subject's military file indicated that he'd been found unfit for duty due to excessive drinking and has been allowed to retire in the best interest of the Navy. So this guy was a drunk, and they're the ones like, let's give him a security clearance and send him over to the Far East, right? People they can control. The CIA like people they could control. His Navy record stated that his drinking problem adversely affected his judgment, reliability, and personal behavior. This weakness has been but I mean, you can see how they just rip into people. Known associate with communists in Los Angeles, right? But you don't know, like, what was he doing, right? Why did he get the security clearance? Why is he, and what is his relation to the John F. Kennedy assassination? We're talking about a guy who's getting security clearance in 1966. So it's just, you get this little piece. You don't know where it fits, what it fits, if it even fits, why it's there. It seems like there's so much stuff. It's not misinformation. It's over information. It's like, I'm going to give you so much, you're not going to be able to understand what you're looking at.
Right.
So we got that. Now, to my other surprise that really kind of, blew my hair back. We already talked about it. Why is James Earl Ray in this? Why is James Earl Ray the assassin, the guy that they caught? He first confessed that he did kill Martin Luther King. Then he said, no, he didn't. It was part of a conspiracy. He's in jail for 99 years. Why is he in this file? Now, here is a piece of this is a diplomatic cable, a CIA security file, right after Martin Luther King Jr. was murdered, right? James Earl Ray had disappeared. They didn't know who he was. They first say, right? This is going to all these countries, all these consulates. All these consulates in all these countries got this cable. Following information furnished by LNERGO concerning suspected assassin of Martin Luther King Jr., name Eric Starvo Galt. So they named Martin Luther King's assassin as Eric Starvo Galt, alias Harvey Lohmeyer, alias John Willard, born 20 July 1931. Height, and then the second page gives like a description and all that. And I'm like, no, the guy who killed Martin Luther King Jr. was James Earl Ray. Or was it?
Exactly.
So then I'm like, this went out and they were supposed to look out for this guy because he had disappeared. He could be showing up. Then about 5 documents further in.
Thing's dense.
5 documents further in. Oops, sorry. I didn't mean to do that. I'll just get rid of that. All right. I get this. It's the same. You had the same countries up there. All right. And 5 feet, 11 inches, all this, right? And it names James Earl Ray. All right. It named James Earl Ray instead of this other guy that we're talking about here. And I'm just like, what happened to Eric Gustavo Galt? Now, James Earl Ray did flee. Now, they have him in possibly going to Portugal, Britain, or Mexico. That's where they thought he would go first, right? He did end up, they got him at Heathrow Airport. They caught him off the plane at Heathrow Airport, trying to get through there and escape, and then brought back. And of course, like I said, but again, I have more information in these documents about James Earl Ray than I do Harvey Lee Oswald.
So far.
Or Lee Harvey Oswald, excuse me. So far. Which is, again, how does it fit? And were these two men connected somehow? Is there an assassination program?
I was going to say, what it seems like to me is, listen, you don't have a guy be involved in an assassination that is separate, but happens what? How many months? Was it a year?
About
a year?
Yeah.
About a year in between?
Well, actually, let me, because I don't want to get there right. When was MLK? April 4th, 1968.
Oh, so we're talking several years.
Several years.
Get mentioned in JFK Files. That tells me this. He was an agent. He was an asset very clearly. And he probably wasn't lying when he said there was a conspiracy. Mm-hmm. He probably was the guy that pulled the trigger. Right?
Yeah.
And his job was to be the fall guy and just make it look like a, clash between races, essentially?
Yeah.
Racially motivated attack. And then he, somehow had a change of heart. And by then it was too late. And I think the reason why you have these documents involved or included with the Lee Harvey Oswald documents, which, not Lee Harvey Oswald, JFK Files, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Is because Oswald was probably a type of asset for the CIA. He had a temperament, clearly, right? A dislike for the United States. Clearly, the Soviets knew what he was going to do. And I'm going to be if I'm a betting man, I'm going to bet that the CIA also knew.
I think
right?
so.
And I think they were happy with that decision. I think they were still.
CIA hated John F. Kennedy.
Bay of Pigs was the word, big nail in the coffin.
Yep. JFK wanted to splinter the CIA into a million pieces. He wanted to get rid of the CIA because he didn't trust it. He thought it was just not. It was becoming out of control. He wanted to give the.
He was right.
He was absolutely right. He wanted to give intelligence services back to the chiefs, the chiefs of staff, so he could have it under the White House. But obviously, it was a growing monster and a lot of money involved. You got to think about the money. This one's interesting. They even talk about here's the consular officer, and they investigate the guy who gave Oswald his permission to come back into the country after going to Russia. Okay. Counsel of the American Embassy in Moscow, Samuel Wise, another said involved in handling the Oswald case, right? So it's like, wait a minute, this is a 1964 document, all right? Here's where I think why things are really weird and why I just think, I don't know, I think you'd have to kind of step back and go, why is the CIA still collecting information on something that they had in a few years after closed? Like, we're looking at, now, granted, you had the Warren Commission, which was the bullshit investigation into the assassination right after it happened. Then you have in the 70s the House Joint Committee on Assassinations, which came out and said, we don't know what really happened, but we think it was a conspiracy. But they have a lot of classified documents in these 80,000 that they probably do know what happened and they just don't want to say, or they have an idea what happened, right? So it's interesting on how much they kept track of, the CIA, the FBI, how much they kept track. Now, we don't know, like, okay, you got to be real careful too in reading this. Like, United States government memorandum, where is this one from? Like, is this a CIA document?
Right.
Is this an FBI document? Is it a State Department document? It's marked secret. CIA.
You know why? Because I was just looking at CIA Gov that told you where I found the Sergei identity. And it is Czechoslovakia. That's where he's from. He's a Czech national.
Okay.
Document format, very similar, and it's from CIA.gov.
And but here's the thing: I've read hundreds of State Department cables that were declassified in South America when doing research on the Nicaragua and Colombia and things like that. And when we were screwing around there in the 80s, they look like this too. It's like maybe it's just a form, but you could probably write it probably is a CIA document.
Well, you have to remember when you were doing your Latin America research, CIA was heavily involved in there. You might have been reading CIA documents that were declassified and you just didn't realize it.
Yeah.
To the State Department.
Could have been.
Because, you don't go to Russia and come back to the U.S. with your wife, who's Russian, very easily.
No, it doesn't happen.
Which tells me that
back
the counselor, exactly. The counselor then was a CIA asset. It was my belief, this may be a bit of a conspiracy, clearly probably was a CIA asset, was told, give him the visa for his wife, get him over here. So, they could kind of control the situation and manage him the way they wanted to.
Well, yeah.
That's what I think so far.
But here's again, like I just pulled up this random document, Cuba. This is the memorandum for the Director of Central Intelligence, right? All about Cuba, and then China opening up a radio station in Cuba. Okay? This document is entirely about Cuba. And again, that's the theme you're going to hear is Cuba, 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 Cuba. So whatever you can get from that, I think that's really the big puzzle piece. But then, you get this document here. Like, what's this? Miss Norma Valverde Varig flight canceled at Mexico City. Onward travel via Aerolíneas Panama flight 203 arriving. Secret. Okay. Well, who the hell is Miss Norma Valverde?
We can look that up. Maybe they have a...
I mean, why do we care in December of 1963? And what does that have to do? Again, there's no context to this. Unless you, again, where does this piece of the puzzle fit?
Mexico City.
Yeah.
As we talked before. Even the Soviets played around in there. We played around in there. Everyone was playing around in there. What was it? Trotsky got assassinated in Mexico City, no, if I'm not mistaken?
Yeah.
So, that just tells you a lot of information just from that one place.
Yeah.
That is suspicious. What did she handle? We have no clue, right?
No clue. Here's another one. Mexico City. Mexico City's all over this as well. So Mexico City was the candy land of spies. This one. Letters should be addressed to Angel Guadalupe Rivera, Hamburgo, okay, to Department Mexico District Federal, which is Mexico City. Jerzy Pleblansky, going to Dallas, December 15th, attend International Symposium on Gravitational Collapse and Other Topics and Relativity Astrophysics. Again, how does this tie into the JFK assassination? Again, it's just like, it's information is sort of like to keep you from seeing what you're supposed to see. Symposium under auspices of Southwest Center for Advanced Studies of Dallas and meetings to be held at Stalter Hilton. Plans to return to Mexico. So obviously they just had this person. This is obviously someone who's very smart, is an academic, or she's an academic. I don't know. Obviously, the CIA keeping tabs on people who are really smart for some reason. Well, I mean, I know what the reason is because they're really smart, and in case they need to take them over. But yeah, you get such a window into just how controlling and invasive the CIA was at this time. And probably, I don't know if they still are, but
I imagine they're still pretty invasive. I think they'd probably calm down a bit.
So you can still read this. I was trying to find one that you can't read anymore. Some of it's not redacted. Yeah, it's not redacted, but you can't read the crap. This one is better, right? All right. I've read all through these, so it's okay. This one's better, but you get ones that are so blurry that you don't know what you're looking at. There's no way to actually decipher what you're watching. Let's see, what are we on? Page 12? Let me go to page 10 here. Like this, right? It's okay. Right? Mm-hmm. That one's okay. But this, like I said, I just cannot even begin to read. Like this one is, see down here, you can sort of make it out.
But it's so bulky ink.
Yeah, but imagine it 10 times this. You can't, and it's the whole document. And you're just like, okay. Or the document is so old that the ink's no longer there. Or like half the document is blank because it's wiped out and so old. Okay. So JFK Files, there we go.
Got a comment here saying, as I started reading the first thing I noticed is that there are no real conclusion memos for all operations and missing details on technology and areas, which is, I think it's standard for the time because they were also still afraid of leaks. So the less information they had to put in, the better, right? So that's why they had the acronyms. That's why you have, these kind of confusing, like very like low context documents, because the idea was if you were reading the document, you already had the context prior to opening it.
I think you're right, but also I think what I have to say to this comment is I think that any of the documents that you would really want about Lee Harvey Oswald were destroyed a long time ago. I think anything the CIA already had on him was destroyed already. I think you're going to get some bits and nibbles and some big picture stuff here, but I think the other stuff's been destroyed.
You know who I'm interested to see if are in these documents? Jack Ruby.
Jack Ruby's not mentioned at all so far.
I need to know something about him because I'm sure. Listen, it's suspicious. The guy's walking out of jail before he even goes to court and can say anything, and he gets shot.
Well, Jack Ruby is a known mob.
My point: CIA has had known connections with the mob in Italy and even internally.
I mean, but what was this guy doing in the garage of the Dallas Police Department during that time?
Exactly my point.
Posing as a reporter.
Exactly my point.
On multiple occasions, posing as a reporter. Right? Obviously, the Dallas police knew who he was. So obviously, the Dallas police let him in. And obviously, someone on the Dallas police had to have something to do with it. But again, nothing on Jack Ruby yet. I'm getting all sorts of spycraft. I will continue to read through all of this stuff, right? And I know there are teams of people at mainstream news organizations trying to get through this stuff for tomorrow morning. And they probably will. We'll see what happens. But I'll keep reading through. I'll keep doing my best.
Well, hey, as you mentioned though before about the main news, can we really trust them? I mean, clearly the CIA had people in there.
I don't know.
So who's to say they don't have them in there today? I'm not saying everyone's against everybody in terms of like the system's against us, right? I am just saying you do have visible proof here. CIA had their hands on the mainstream media, writers, editors, probably TV presenters. I'm not going to be surprised if they did.
But again, Look at this. I mean,
Can't read it.
you can't read it, right? You get documents like this. But again, this is the only document in this file.
So what is it about?
What is it? It's just a cover sheet. It's a freaking cover sheet. And this is the stuff that they've been like. So something, I don't know if it's not that I don't trust it. I don't trust it.
You don't trust it.
I don't trust anything.
Don't trust it.
I don't trust anything right now when it reads this stuff. All I know is that, again, here's another document. Cuban government, money. Cuban government, money. Germany, Italy, France,
not surprising.
Crops, barter deals. It's like, okay, I understand. Like this.
Oh, yeah, you can't read that.
The pouch. When they talk about the pouch, that means like all the documents that pertain to this, right? Like, what is this? All right. Someone named Pruhan Zaprima. A review program shows that efforts have not achieved any significant results in continuation of programs such no longer warranted. What program?
TV program?
No. Program as in like...
Oh, program as like a training program or operation.
Cuban failure to recruit in significant numbers appears due largely to reluctant foreign ministry and foreign service officers pursue tech recruiting mission aggressively.
What month is this?
This is about... Is this pre-Bay of Pigs?
Is it Bay of Pigs?
This is...
Post Bay of Pigs then, because it'd be like what?
Oh, dear God. This is November 21st, 1963.
Day before?
The day before.
Ooh, all right. This might have more significance.
Let me read this for a second. Recently concluded HOS review of Zaprina program shows that Cuban efforts HUDARC, that CIA efforts have not achieved any significant results in continuation programs. Main reason for CIA, remember we talked about this word right here means CIA. CUBARC means CIA. Failure is that Cuban technician recruiting program has been miserable failure when measured against Fidel's original objective of 2,000 techs from Western Europe alone. So Fidel was able to out-recruit the CIA. Though our figures not complete, we estimate probably less than 50 candidates have received contract approval, and we able to confirm about 10 who have actually made it to the island. CIA succeeded in asserting that 30... Okay. This is a memorandum dated one day before the assassination. And it's 5 pages long. This is one I want to read.
Right. We got another comment here from the KT again.
Yeah, KT.
But one thing you can understand is that the CIA was kind of badass, whether that's good or bad. And also, I think that the world is playing an entirely different game than we think. Connections.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we're in the dark.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
We're in the dark. And the thing is, people like me who think they're smart and they're not. I'm a pretty intelligent guy. I got a master's degree and everything. I can put stuff together. But we're in the dark. We are in the dark. And yes, the CIA is playing the world's playing a whole other game. You're right. And back then with the Cold War,
had to.
It was a game for the survival of the way of life. And so, yeah, I get it. They were pretty bad. Like, I get it. I don't want to say that, like, I don't want to shit all over the CIA.
No.
All right? That's not what I'm trying to say. But they were taking some liberties. I think sometimes you have to go look at it and go, maybe that's a bridge too far. But I'd rather
they succeeded.
I look at it, I hate to paint the wall with one brush. You know what I'm saying? It's, I'm sure they have some things that are just like in any organization that are embarrassing, or maybe things that they wish they didn't do, or things that could destroy them, or things that are, but I'm sure that their wins are, that's the thing with organizations like this. I think the FBI says it best. Their failures are world news. Their successes are never known. Probably the same thing with the CIA.
Probably.
This is definitely an interesting document. And I'm going to have to really realize what that is.
Save that one.
Yeah, that one I'm going to remember is, okay, let me just write that one down because I want to make sure I get back to that. That is 104 101 00 10 34. Okay.
Yeah, everyone did make a big deal about these files, and there isn't, like, the media is not really covering it too much. I mean, you've got...
Well, they're trying to read through them.
Well, I'm sure they were trying to read through it, but I'm sure they would have had, like, read, like, some cover memo on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Surely they would have had something to present on it, but they're all focused on space, getting the astronauts back today, Russia, Ukraine, the Russian talks with Trump, Israel, Gaza. I mean, there's a lot of things going on today.
What?
What?
1998. Okay.
98 document. All right.
Oh. Okay, so they're reviewing something. Again, this is the last one on the list. I went all the way to the last one. And this is about Cuban retaliation. Harassment, cutting off the water. So, okay, so just about Guantanamo Bay. So it's just weird. It's just like, okay, well, I saw 1998, see like 1998.
Fun fact about Guantanamo, we actually technically paid Cuba for running it. They never cashed a check. Because we had an agreement with the Cuban government prior to the Castro administration. And we just kind of said we'll never leave. If this is ours, we made a deal. We're going to maintain it whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
Here's your money. So they never cashed a single check.
I think what you're going to see here is you're going to learn more about the Cuban conflict than anything else in these documents. I think that's what you're going to learn more.
I think it was their key motivation. I know people like the point of Vietnam.
Cuban Missile Crisis.
Cuban Missile Crisis.
There it is right here.
Cuba in general.
Fuck me. Which, again, statement by the director. Again, this is a little bit more substantive. Cuban subversion in Latin America and how. Okay, so like we've been fighting over Latin America for a long, long time. Again, I guess they get more. Yeah, this is all about Cuba, the Cuban plan.
Yep. They got frustrated with Cuba.
So obviously, listen.
How many assassination attempts on Castro? What, over 700?
Yeah.
Blown up cigars, women. Nothing worked. Clearly, they had a grudge against the man.
Okay, so obviously, what these papers are really going to try and tell us is that there was a huge issue with Cuba, and I think the more and more we read these, I think if Oswald had help, it was Cuban. If Oswald didn't act alone, it was a Cuban. I think it was the Cuban military elements the paramilitary elements that we let run wild in the country. I think that's where this stuff all came from. I mean, yeah, Oswald was a nut job, and I don't know, maybe he didn't do it. I don't know. I got to continue to read. I don't know yet. Nothing I've read has changed my mind on anything other than that. I have no clue.
I think this convinced me a little bit more on the conspiracy aspect theories. I mean, I always thought the death was suspicious and there's probably more people involved. I just didn't know what organizations were involved. Was it all mob affiliated? I never once considered to think about. I mean, they talk a lot about Cuban discontent in the United States. What if the grassy knoll shooter was a Cuban?
Here's a repeat document. I've read it. In the beginning of our stream, I read this one. It takes 25 minutes to drive from the airport down to Helsinki. And this one is like, it's a repeat document.
Yep. KT, yeah, you're right. The vast network of communication from all the angles, the police, the crime syndicates, and the janitors even. Yeah, the CIA had a spider web of people from all walks of life. And I really do agree with you. It is interesting to draw the connection between Cuba, space, science, communists, and JFK.
Yeah.
It is a very interesting kind of little combination there, but I think Cuba played a bigger role, at least in motivation, than most people realized.
I just don't think it was the lone nut.
No, absolutely not. No.
I just have a hard time. First of all,
I got shot by Jack Ruby. He was not supposed to be there. Listen, you can't convince me that the guy was there for any other reason than
well, first off, the guy couldn't have done the shooting. Okay, physically he couldn't have done the shooting because obviously, okay.
The magic says he's shit at his shot.
Yeah.
He's a shit shot.
Let's just take it this way. There were 4 shots. There's audio. Do you know that they actually dug out the audio, the radio, the police radios that were on that at that time? They pick up the bullet sounds. They think there were 6 shots. They know that there was at least 4.
Right.
All right. So you've got the one shot that misses that hits the James Tague underneath the bridge in Dallas. Okay. So that's 1 bullet. 1. All right. They've got the headshot. The final headshot, which is no way he made that headshot through that freaking tree on a moving target. No way. Shot. No, he didn't do it.
Headshot
with that rifle. No,
it's a Carcano.
Yep,
it's not reliable.
World's worst shoulder weapon. Okay. The second, so then you have 1 bullet that has to account for all the other wounds on Connolly and Kennedy, which was where they came up with the magic bullet theory, where the thing takes right turns, hovers in the air, pauses, then goes.
Wait. Let me explain the magic bullet theory a little better. Yes, that is the theory. But if you actually go through the renderings and you look at the Zapruder film, at the moment that bullet is shot, If you look at the arm placements and take into account that the seats are at different heights, I believe the governor's seat in front is lower than Kennedy's. Kennedy's is actually elevated.
Sure.
And you see the hand positions. The computer says the shot is absolutely possible to take a straight line and make it all. However, I will say this. It does.
Yeah.
I think it does say that the
and
shot
would the bullet look like that?
No, that's not the bullet.
That is the bullet.
I don't believe that's the magic bullet. I believe the magic bullet.
That's the bullet they found and said, this is the bullet that did it.
Right. I believe that's wrong. I believe that part of it is wrong. But I'm not going to say, I do believe that the bullet could, just according to computer renderings and the information, you can take into account every detail. I believe it's possible that one shot could go through and hit all those body parts. I don't believe it survives being fully intact. And I also find it hard to believe that they don't find the bullet in the car.
They find it on a gurney later on.
Exactly.
Like it just fell out of Governor Connolly.
No, I think it's wrong.
Get the frig out. Everybody, listen. When a bullet hits bone and it gets mashed up.
Right. That's what I'm saying. The other thing is my other problem with the bullet theory, even though I am kind of arguing that it is technically possible, is going through bone that many times would cause the bullet to stop eventually. You know what I mean? It loses momentum. This is a Carcano. It's not like it's a like a German, made rifle top of the line. And I understand the magic bullet theory is technically possible if you count everything, but just no. I don't know. It's a little suspicious. 6 gunshots on the radio. I think there are more.
There's just no way he did that shooting. And again, in the movie JFK, Jim Garrison makes a point, and it's from his books, because the movie's based on Jim Garrison's books that he wrote during his investigation. Why not shoot him coming up Houston?
Yeah, exactly. It's the better shot.
Why wait till he
kills him? Because someone was on the knoll. Because they had 2 people there at least. At the very least, they had 2 shooters in my mind. You had witnesses saying there were gunshots and smoke from behind us.
Well, also what I want to see in these JFK files is there's so many witnesses that were interviewed by the Warren Commission that would tell you they'll come back and say, "Hey, witness A," and this they do this in the movie. Jim Garrison shows this one woman, "Here's your testimony to the Warren Commission," and she looks at it. She goes, "This is not. I never said this." She goes, "That's my signature, but I never signed this document." There's so many witnesses that would not go along with what they wanted to be. What they wanted, there was 3 shots. These witnesses that saw things that weren't, that weren't included. All these witnesses.
Have you heard?
1 car accidents, mysterious heart attacks, suicide. It's like, wait a minute. Like, why is there so many deaths with these witnesses? So I want to see if there's something about that.
And speaking of the heart attacks, the CIA released a heart attack gun. They said, "Hey, we have a gun that can induce heart attacks," and you wouldn't be able to tell.
Who's the babushka lady? Everybody's looking. I'm sure the CIA knows who the frig the babushka lady is.
Umbrella Man.
Also,
my other thing is there's apparently a second film from the other side of the street that shows puffs of smoke allegedly from the grassy knoll, and it was handed into, I believe, the Warren Commission, but never released. It's gone. It's magically disappeared.
Well, so's the president's brain.
Exactly.
Like, we didn't keep that.
No, you know where it was? It was given to, I believe, Kennedy's son. He left it in an alleyway. It's just gone forever. It was in a jar or something. Allegedly. I think that's insane.
Allegedly, right? So there are so many witnesses and so many people that will say, "I was on the grassy knoll." People who were military men. People who were all that.
KT here with he's saying he watched the video and seen the bullet. He's hit twice before, referring to the magic bullet theory. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah. But continue. I thought it was important.
Yeah. It's definitely. But there's been so many people that are on the grassy knoll that will say that people who've been in combat, people who are members of the armed forces, people who are former police officers, and they'll say there were shots coming from behind me, not from in front. They literally say shot, and they were like, "No, it was an echo." I'm sorry.
Echo does not make you duck for cover.
First of all, this is Dallas, Texas. Those people know their guns. Okay? People in like if someone from Texas said, "This is what happens with it gives me any type of information or advice on a gun," it's a fact.
It's a fact. That's not debatable. It is fact. As good as the word of God.
Yeah, it's gospel, okay? Because it's friggin' Texas. I lived there. I know these people are very serious about this shit. And furthermore, if you're from Texas and you've been in actual military combat, and you tell me that the shots came from behind you, I'm going to believe that the shots came from behind you.
Those are the best Vegas betting odds a man can hear.
So.
Texan, veteran, knows everything about guns.
Yep.
I mean, the only reason I know a decent chunk about guns is
Because you
I
live
lived in Texas, and some of my friends, I love them, but there are some gun nuts. Some absolute gun nuts.
My friends are gun nuts. They have more guns. They
have more guns than you need.
I'm like, I remember, I'm from Massachusetts. Guns aren't a culture there, right? I have nothing against guns. You guys buy all the guns you want. Love you. And just be safe. Be responsible. That's all I care. But I remember seeing my first gun safe. I kind of didn't know what it was. I was like, why do you have this huge safe? I said to my buddy, why do you have this huge safe? What are you hoarding gold? He opened it up. I'm like, no, you're preparing for war, apparently, because he had 10 rifles and I don't know how many handguns. And it was silly. It was like, oh my God.
Small militia just right there. Could be armed.
I guess, okay, I collect comic books. He collects guns. Who am I to judge?
Kind of cool. Both.
I didn't realize how expensive guns were until I moved to Texas. They're expensive. Yeah. They're like a luxury item. Everybody should have one.
Got another comment from KT. KT, you're very active here. The way JFK was killed is the same style they described in the Cuba operation: snipers, cover, and suppression.
Yeah.
Kill zone. I mean, that's kind of where it was developed.
Yeah, this was
Houston. I do bring up that point.
It was precision. You're right. Precision. You're absolutely right. It was a precision operation. This was not some guy who decided. I can't. And there are some witnesses that put Oswald on the second floor in the cafeteria during the assassination.
Right. And can you discredit them? I mean, there's multiple witnesses.
It's not like he had an elevator. He had to go up and down, 4 flights of stairs.
The problem is with that theory is, though, he did right after shoot a deputy.
Did he? Because there is a witness that says the time that Officer Tippett was being shot by supposedly Oswald, there's a neighbor of Oswald's that sees him down the street the other way.
All right, interesting.
So was it just something random? Was it who knows what the hell it was?
Are you saying that Oswald might have never been involved?
There's a possibility Oswald never even took a shot.
Which would be, amazing. That would flip every theory on
Remember
its
when
head.
he said, I'm just a patsy?
Maybe he's right.
I
mean, we'll never know. He took it with the grave.
Where's the notes on his interview? Oh, the person who interviewed him for about 26 hours straight, the detective,
died?
No. He destroyed his notes right after the interview.
Interesting.
Why? We'll never have those notes. All we have, you can look up some of the notes and their recreations from people who were in the room that kind of like, this is what I remember hearing. I don't want to remember. No, bullshit. Why did you destroy the notes? Again, I'm not trying to make a hero or anything out of Oswald, but I have not seen any proof. Okay, they did nitrate tests on him.
Gun residue?
Gun residue. Negative.
Negative? Okay, hold on. Listen, that is concerning more to me because I didn't know that ever about the case that he had no gun residue on him. Which you always have gun. If you took 4 shots, right? They say 4 shots?
3. So he did 3 shots.
He did 3 shots?
The Warren Commission says 3. The House Un-American says there was 3 shots, at least from the Book Depository building, and probably another 1 or 2 from somewhere else.
Okay. You shoot 3 times, you're going to have some gunshot residue. Yeah, you have GSR on you. I mean, that's concerning. And back to the whole grassy knoll theory, I think that's why it holds up so well, is you brought up the Houston Street, 1 clear shot. Mm-hmm. CIA probably did know that Oswald was a shit shot. They probably knew, just like the KGB, because if the KGB knew it, the CIA did. And they said, we don't want to take the risk of him. Yes, it's a straightaway shot. It should be easy. But you know what? He can miss it. And if he misses it, President can duck for cover real easily. And they're not going to speed through that grassy knoll. They're going to take a U-turn and go. Right?
Yeah.
Well, that's my opinion. So I think they said, there's the grassy knoll over there. Put a guy behind there.
Well, there it is.
Create the zone.
Right? Here's Houston Street. The limo turns. All right, here's where Oswald supposedly is on the second floor.
He's got a better shot than Houston.
Front shot, head shot. Even if he misses when he takes a shot here, he's going to take another shot here. He can take another shot. He wastefully turns, right? Here's the grassy knoll. There was someone, and people say they saw someone there. They saw 1-2 people there. One with a radio. One witness said, no, he had a radio too. And then, so if you put someone here, team here, a team here, a team up here, and a team here, I mean,
It's a zone.
Yeah.
I mean, you just need these two because essentially the street you can't. You either have to continue going past the grassy knoll, which is the knoll a better shot, or if you try to go around, whoever's in the tower has another chance
he's hitting that third shot from up here, high angle,
through cover.
240 feet to shot number 2.
I mean,
300 feet through cover, through trees. I mean, yeah, maybe he got lucky. I don't know. Maybe he got lucky.
I mean, let me look this up. I mean, I'm curious. How far was the Butler shooter from Trump?
Maybe 100 yards, 150 yards.
Let's see.
But Oswald was a Marine. I guess he got that too.
See if I can find it. They don't give me exact.
It was honestly, it was like most people who shoot rifles say it was like the equivalent of a layup.
From what, 100 yards?
Yeah,
with an AR.
With AR, he had him dead to rights. Trump moved.
Yeah, but that's my point. Is listen, that guy's using an AR, 100 yards, dead to rights, clear shot.
But Trump moved.
Trump moved, sure, but you would imagine that with an AR you get a couple more shots. You know what I mean?
He did. He got a couple more shots, but Trump went down.
Exactly, Trump went down. That's my point. Compare that to Lee Harvey Oswald.
It takes because they talk about it in a movie, and it takes between. It takes so many movements to reload that rifle.
Exactly my point.
It takes between 3 and 6 seconds, depending on how good you are.
My point is, his shot is not really. The more you look at it and you compare it even to just modern standards, his shot shouldn't be possible. His accuracy shouldn't be possible. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. But that kind of rifle,
first shot's always going to be the best, but his third shot is the best.
His third shot's the best, which is confusing.
He misses his first.
Yeah, your first shot usually tells you. I'm sure you can talk about adjustment. I'll give you the second shot, but the third shot is the kill shot, essentially, right?
Yeah.
He doesn't make that kill shot. I don't think.
Back into the left, baby. Still haven't explained that one to me.
Nope. Back into the left. Yeah, that's grassy knoll. That shot came from another side.
What is this thing I just pulled up? I have no idea. This thing's like this. How do you even read this? And why is it classified?
What does it say? Chief CIA Operational Approval and Support Division.
There's no words. What are we approving?
Something. What's the date?
There's no date.
Is that it?
About 65.
65. 2 years later?
That's Cuba or that's Vietnam. And that's really also, too, is just...
I mean, we're theorizing here, but...
It's all theory. It's all theory.
The more you look at it, the CIA, Oswald, very fishy components. The witness testament.
Just honestly, the lack of mentioning of Oswald in this whole thing.
And James Earl Ray, really out of left field.
Yeah, it just makes me think maybe he's a patsy. I don't know.
And I'm surprised they didn't talk about Jack Ruby, because I feel like you do an investigation of Jack Ruby.
And the thing is, the search function on this thing is really,
doesn't work.
No, it's like search JFK records. Jack Ruby. Nothing.
Maybe because it can't read it. You know what I mean? Because it's trying. You know when you command F, right? Do like Oswald. Will Oswald
I did.
pull up? See, that's my point. It can't read the documents.
No,
the computer can't tell what the documents are saying.
But I will continue to. I'm going to put aside some time to go through as many of these as possible over the next week.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure there's going to be, like I said, I'm sure there's like
teams
of people that have already like gone through at least half of this. We're talking 80,000 documents,
right?
You know, and I mean, pick a number from 30 to 80.
75.
Ooh, year of my birth. Let's go to 75. Let's just play this game once, and then we'll get to our next story. All right, 75. Pick a number from 1 to 10.
2.
And your document is that.
Dispatch. And barely readable.
What the
Very legible. Jesus. And ATOC.
December 1961. Again, what am I?
What are you reading?
I know it's not redacted.
But it might as well be.
It might as well be.
But look, it says 61, 12 December 61, right?
I'm just looking for the word Oswald here. You know what? It's just or
You
Ruby,
can find
or
it.
I'm looking for keywords.
They got code names here. Nunez. Cuban. December 12th, 1961. I mean, when was the Cuban Bay of Pigs, if I'm not mistaken?
61, I believe.
This could be leading up to it or just post. This would be post because it's December, right?
Yeah.
Talking about December. This probably comes in 62, this document then.
Yeah, you see, it's just lucky number 10.
Let's see. RI copy. I mean, it's no context.
December 1661. Just talks about this guy. He's a Cuban exile.
Looks like they're talking about Cuban assets.
Everything. It's all Cuban
assets.
All Cuban assets.
Which makes you think maybe it was like I said mentioned before.
Oswald knew the Cubans down in Louisiana.
That's
he
my
knew
point.
them. He knew those militants.
My point is what I'm saying.
He was helping train those militants.
I think those Cubans were involved in the plot. I think maybe the mob angle isn't fully right. Jack Ruby is the only mob aspect, right?
Yeah.
Maybe they had some help with them in terms of resources in the area, but it was going to be Cuban militants who were going to participate in the plan.
I mean, we screwed with Jamaica too.
I mean, we screwed with everybody. The Caribbean was ours. Essentially.
What am I reading here? Meeting with Dr. Cardon on 6th of October, 1961.
Interesting.
It really is. It's really, this is less the story of the JFK assassination.
More about the Cuban.
And more the story of the U.S.-Cuban conflict.
Right.
Which is still going on today.
Oh, yeah.
You know.
Still hold a grudge.
Yeah, it just tells the whole, just the depth of it all. But all right, with that, we're going to go on to our next story. I think that's
we'll probably talk more about it.
I'm going to read more. I'll read more. I mean, I got work to do, but I'll read more. I'll do my best to read as much as I can before my brain gets fried. But let's talk about something fun. The astronauts are back.
Hell yeah!
That we left up there for 10 months because Biden wouldn't go get them because he didn't want to give Elon Musk a win.
No,
couldn't give Elon a win because Elon, was voting for the other guy and supporting the other guy. So we decided to leave the astronauts up there. So they're back after 10 months. They've lost I don't know how much bone density. They've had so much radiation exposure. Who knows what's gone on with their bodies or what's going to continue to go on with their bodies over the next I don't know how many years of their life. Because Orange Man bad. But thank God they got him back, and we watched him touchdown. We watched the rescue. It was cool.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
So glad to have him back. In the meantime, since we also use Starlink, they put up 25 more satellites up there.
Hey, there you go.
Nice. Like so
please have them hover over Mexico.
We love talking about my son and I. We love talking about space stuff because we used to live in Houston, and that's NASA right there.
Space City. Space City. Literally the name of it.
Space City, baby. And it's fun to go and see that stuff. And
you ever been in Mission Control?
I did not. You did.
I got the opportunity to be in there. Really, really cool. It was like the old Mission Control.
Yeah, they haven't refurbished the thing.
No. But that's nice. We got them back finally. Yeah. I'm sure. If I was them, I'd be asking for a damn cheeseburger. Probably can't eat that right away. Make you sick.
Yeah,
the fluids. Because they have to go on like a whole fluid.
Well, aren't they? One of them's married. He's like, yeah, I was supposed to be gone for 10 days. I was gone for 10 months. Like, what does that do to your marriage?
I don't think it does good things, Ringo. I don't think it makes it stronger. Like, that makes me more concerned to go home and find another person there.
we go up to your mother. Hey, I'm going to be gone for 10 months. You okay with that?
You'll be dead.
Yeah. I mean, she would beat me to death. She beat me to death in my sleep. She's like, you ain't leaving. I'm like, okay. So, speaking of Elon, so Elon did something good today. And apparently, because we hate that Elon brought back the astronauts, or we hate that Elon is Orange Man bad, we're burning Teslas. Tesla dealerships are being terrorized because that's what this is. This isn't a boycott anymore.
This is domestic terrorism.
This isn't a protest. It's domestic terrorism. Yep. One guy tried to light a Tesla charging station on fire with a Molotov cocktail. He set himself on fire. He got arrested. He's probably going to face up to 20 years in jail. I say light him on fire again.
That's brutal.
I mean, just you're an idiot.
He's dumb.
So people are lighting Tesla dealerships on fire, shooting bullets at Teslas, vandalizing Teslas that they find in parking lots. So if you go to Costco and you got a Tesla, they'll key it, paint it, whatever, while you're in Costco. So it's a domestic. Really, honestly, Trump is right. This violence is domestic terrorism.
At this point now, yeah. Before it was like when you protested it, sure. But when you go on and you start burning and shooting at places and going after people because they own a product that has a relationship to I have to say federal employee because that's what he is essentially now, right?
I don't even think we pay him, so I don't know if you call him. I guess he's an employee.
But Trump gave him
a
position of some sort, right?
Yeah.
Essentially, that is federalized.
Yeah.
That my point being, he's a federal employee who handles a very sensitive task when it comes to the American budget. And you are trying to commit acts of terror to influence, sway, or create action or law that will go against his will. That you're trying to force his will into doing what you want, which is the definition of terrorism. The act of terrorism is done for the purpose of not just convincing, but forcing individuals in power to do acts of law that are in your favor.
Well, here's the actual definition. The committing of terrorist acts in the perpetrator's own country against their fellow citizens.
Right. That's the basic definition.
Here's the legal definition.
Legal definition is fishy. It depends who you ask.
Domestic terrorism involves acts dangerous to human life, violating U.S. or state criminal laws intended to intimidate or coerce the civilian population, influence government policy, or affect government conduct by mass destruction, assassination, or kidnapping, or occurring primarily within the United States.
The coercion. That's the part. You're trying to coerce.
I think it's pretty. I don't think it's even tricky. I think it's pretty straightforward. This is domestic terrorism. These people should be charged as domestic terrorists.
I agree. That we learned in domestic terrorism there are a couple of definitions. There's the international definition, there's the U.S. definition, and there's a couple other countries you can look at. I like the U.S. definition more. The international has to be a little more safety with it because it's the UN definition, right? Actually, the UN I don't even think has an official definition of it.
Well, let me ask you this.
The U.S. definition is my favorite.
What are the Democrats saying about this?
Nothing.
They think it's great. You know what some Democrats are doing? They're advertising on TikTok and on Instagram. They're like, look at me. I got rid of my Tesla and I bought myself a Ford, which I got nothing against Ford. But their gasoline. Wait, so climate change was a whole fraud? So basically, Democrats are admitting right now that climate change is a fraud because they're buying gasoline powered vehicles. Right? Teslas. They were going to save the planet, save the climate. Now they're getting rid of it, and now saying we're going to go to this built by a union. All that. I'm like, you people are ridiculous. So climate change was a fraud.
This could have worked. This whole switching sides works in the 20th century. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Before social media and the internet. But now that we have the internet and social media, it's so easy to go back and see what you said before.
Mm-hmm.
That politicians often get now caught in these lies and it hurts them big. And I'm actually surprised that they're trying to make a unionized essentially effort here to have everyone kind of switch their position. I'm sure they'll make...
the auto workers union is going to stay with Trump because of what he's doing with tariffs. They love it.
Yeah, exactly. They brought manufacturing jobs back.
Democrats, you've lost the auto union. Yeah. Buying a Ford and putting it on TikTok is not going to get the auto union back. Here we go. Cars have been burned down, keyed, and Tesla stores had windows broken, have been graffitied, and even shot at. Okay.
Shot is excessive. Burning is already excessive, but shooting, the bullets fly straight, and you don't always aim true unless you know what you're doing. You could hit somebody by accident.
The FBI is now involved. Kash Patel's like, no, this is not good. President Trump said last week that he wants to classify vandalism against Tesla as domestic terrorism. We previously reported the FBI has already gotten involved in several instances of vandalism at Tesla stores. Okay, good. Go get them. Seriously, go get them. These cowards that wear the masks, and they're no better than ISIS. They're no better than Al-Qaeda. They're terrorists. They're cowards.
Before, I would argue against making it a whole domestic terrorism act because it's like you're using the idea that damaging a company is, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But because, one, how hard this is escalated, two, he holds a federal position, and this is clearly done in against the actions he's taking while in that position. it fits the definition.
You know, when they arrest these people, they're going to be like these fucking long-haired pussies that couldn't stand up in a real fight. Like, they're probably like, you know, if you push them, they'll be like, "Ow, you assaulted me." Or if you try to shake their hand, they probably give you the limp, dead fish hand. You know, these friggin', oh my God.
But they'll burn a Tesla.
These aren't men. You're not a man. You're not a real man. You're not a man. You're not even a boy. You're just, you know what? Just get it over, you little tranny. Just cut off your. Just go chop it off.
Gringo.
Because that's what you are. That's what you are. You're a fucking gutless, dickless person to be a domestic terrorist.
Gutless shirt. Everything else, I don't know. I can go this far with you.
Fuck them.
I hate people.
I don't give a shit. No.
I hate people.
I'll call it like it is.
I hate people.
If I got a problem with somebody or something, I'm going to show up with my face. If I want to cause violence, then I'll do it with my face being shown. Be like, this is who I am. This is where I am. I've done it. Hey, you know, at times I defend you and your mother and your brother against people. Guess what? I didn't go put a mask on.
No. Of course.
Right?
No, that's different.
Here's me. Right? I got a problem with somebody at a store. I got a problem with my boss. I got a problem with her. I go talk to them because this is my face.
Face to face.
Right? Face to face.
I respect that.
You're going to cover yourself up? Oh, I don't want to be seen. No. You know what? You got no guts and you're a dickless coward. That's what you are.
Yeah, all right.
That's how I feel. I don't care.
Very passionate there, Gringo.
I just, you know what? Stand up, be a man. You want to burn the Tesla? Go ahead, burn it. Burn it with your face in camera view. Show the world that you are.
I do agree that it is weird that you want to make such a strong statement, right? But you're also so unwilling to. I'm not saying show yourself, but also be like, stand by your decision.
By the way, how much carbon emissions do you think that causes by burning a Tesla and all its batteries?
Also, the chemicals you release in the air,
burning
off the paint and the metal. Yeah, it's pretty bad.
Just saying.
So it's pretty counterproductive.
Climate change. It's a fucking hoax, folks. It's a fucking hoax. It's a fucking hoax. I listen. I used to be one of these people who took my climatology class in college because I wanted to learn the science and all that. So I know the science. I know some of the science. But I also know that when I was 5 years old in 1980, I was being told that if we don't do something about climate change, the ice is going to be gone and the polar bears are going to be dead and drowned. And that would happen in 5 years of me being 5 years old. And in 1985, guess what? The ice was still there. The polar bears are still there. And guess what? 40 years later after that, when I turned 50, the ice is still there. The polar bears are still there. Climate change is a hoax, folks. It's a fucking hoax. There is climate change that happens naturally, but as far as man-induced, it's a fucking hoax.
I mean, I'm sure we have some sort of.
I'm sure we have some. Yeah, sure. Oh, yeah. A little bit. We're not causing tidal waves. We're not causing hurricanes.
No, I don't know about that. I need more research on that.
I've done plenty of research.
I like to do more research before I make.
It's a way to control. It's a way to dictate policy and money. That's all it is.
That's fair.
Yeah, that's all it is. You and I can discuss. I know you're more of a climate change guy than I am.
No, I'm not exactly. I mean, I do care about the environment.
I care about the environment,
but
I want to keep it clean.
Same time,
I don't want to pollute.
I'm not saying I'm not. I'm not going to say climate change is not real. You know what I mean? I think it's
man-made
real.
Climate change.
Man-made climate change. I don't know how far. You know what I mean?
Folks.
How much do we actually contribute, and how much do we actually not contribute?
Okay, why did the climate change and shift 3,000 years ago? It's natural, right?
Yeah.
We weren't around.
Sure.
The poles have shifted. The land. Sure. Listen, the Earth is a giant organism, living organism that is way more complex than we could ever be. So it'll get rid of us. It'll get rid of us. So.
All right. Anything else for tonight?
I'm good.
That's it. JFK Files were the big one. A couple of those stories at the end, space and Tesla burning, just to kind of round it out. We didn't talk about the Russian.
Nothing happened.
They didn't. Ceasefire.
That's a ceasefire. It's like a partial ceasefire. They're not going to fire on infrastructure or energy.
Yeah, which is like interesting.
Okay.
I think it's a little interesting. But I want to see. I think that will develop more tomorrow. I'm sure in Ukraine and Europe right now, they're getting up either really early or they're going to get up in the next, about 3-4 hours from now and they'll have something to probably add. So,
hopefully.
Yeah. Tomorrow will be live, right?
Yeah, tomorrow. Well, wait.
Tomorrow's Wednesday.
No, Wednesday. We don't go live.
No, we don't go live Wednesday. Thursday, we might.
Thursday, we always go live.
Yeah, Thursday we will.
Thursday and Saturday.
We will have the Snow White movie. So you guys.
Oh, yeah. We got to go see Snow White on Thursday.
Are you looking forward to a review? Gringo's gonna have one out by
You too.
Yeah, we'll do a live reaction right after the
I
theater.
mean, you're gonna love it. I know you're gonna love it.
No, that's your movie. You've been talking about it all day. You've been going like, oh,
That's my girl right there. Hi ho. All right. With that, we're gonna get back to work. We're gonna play some video games and stuff like that too as well. With that, I'm gonna go eat dinner because it's late and I haven't eaten yet. Thanks everybody for joining. Appreciate everybody from south of the border. I'm still your reluctant gringo. Salud. A huevo.
Adios.
Adios.